River in New York. The Gold Cup was born. The Standard, 59 feet long, won that race with a speed of 23.16 miles an hour. The boats in those days were wide-beamed. They used 110 horsepower automobile engines. There was another Gold Cup race that year, and for the next 13 years, the Gold Cup race stayed in New York. Then it moved to the Midwest, and starting in 1917, Gar Wood became the first superstar in the sport. In 1920, he set a new record of 70.412 miles an hour. In the middle of the late 30s, there were two-man boats. One man drove, and one ran the engine. In 1939, they added sponsons, but Gar Wood's record of 70.412 continued to hold. The race wasn't held during the Second World War. When the war ended, airplane engines revolutionized boats and speeds. But band leader Guy Lombardo in the Tempo 6 won the first post-war Gold Cup. It was an automobile engine that he used and set a new world record of 70.890 miles an hour. In the 1950s, they built the first prop rider and three-point suspension hulls that were capable of speeds well over 150 miles an hour. Well, the rest is history. Hydroplane dynasties have put names on the Gold Cup like Billy Shoemaker, Lee Shaneth, and the late Ron Musson, Bill Munsey, and Dean Chenoweth. And today we'll etch another name on the Gold Cup as from the shores of the Ohio River in Evansville, Indiana, Sports World welcomes you to the 75th running of the Gold Cup. And the hot sun shines down on the 2-mile course laid out here in the bend of the Ohio. 90,000 people are now lining the banks, ready to see who will become the next champion. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and we've come a long way since that first victory in Standard. The object? A small Tiffany Gold Cup that represents the pinnacle of achievement for the hydroplane racer. Now, there are some great names etched on the base of that cup: Gar Wood, band leader Guy Lombardo, Bill Munsey, and Dean Chenoweth. And the rivalry continues here today that we've seen for the past several years between the Miss Budweiser and the Miss Atlas van lines. They are both looking for the first ever 6th victory in a Gold Cup competition. The leading driver in the sport right now is young Chip Hanauer. He's last year's Gold Cup champion. And right now, Gary Gerald is in his pit.
Paul, it was just a year ago that Chip Hanauer in this boat turned in a breathtaking ride on the choppy waters of the Detroit River as he held off the determined challenge of the late Dean Chenoweth to win his first ever Gold Cup, continuing a great tradition for this boat established by the late Bill Munsey. Not only did he win the Gold Cup, he went on to win the national championship. And already this weekend here in Evansville, a new world record on a 2-mile closed course, average speed better than 133 miles per hour. Clearly, Hanauer is ready for a second run at the gold. The prime competition from a longtime rival at the other end of the pits, Johnny Rutherford, is alongside.
Gary, I'm standing in the pits by a boat whose name is synonymous with Gold Cup racing, Miss Budweiser. This boat has 6 national championships and 5 Gold Cups to its credit, most of those being won by the late Dean Chenoweth, one of the star drivers of hydroplane racing. Jim Kropfeld, its new driver, hopes today to add to his credit his first ever Gold Cup. Incidentally, Chip Hanauer has never beaten Jim Kropfeld in a race. But they both have the rest of the field to contend with.
That's right, John, and one of them is the Miss Renault, piloted by Milner Irvin. It's a new design. It was merely a piece of paper on a drawing board last November. It's powered by a twin-turbo Allison, but the rear wing is right down on the deck of the boat. And another that we always keep an eye on, the longest continuing ownership of a boat in hydroplane racing, the Miss Madison, owned by the community of Madison, Indiana. It's a twin-turbo Allison, the motor up front, and it'll be piloted by Ron Snyder.